Michael, it's nice to see you again. The last time we visited was during Coal Miner's Daughter. And, of course, the phenomenal success of that movie, we hope will, set the pattern for the success of Continental Divide.
Keep our toes crossed for that.
Yes, yes. This movie will come as a surprise. I think to some people they'll see John Belushi in an entirely different kind of role, a pretty straight role, actually, romantic comedy. Was he already cast when you came into it?
No, it was something I wanted to bring to the material because I just wanted to surprise people, because it's a fairly straight story. It's a very entertaining story, but I mean it's a fairly straight one, and I thought it needed some danger, some excitement. And so I'd always thought that John could act. I mean, I'd always thought he had that in him from particularly his work in Saturday Night Live, when he assumed a lot of characters. And I just thought it would be a challenge and an exciting thing for an audience to see John playing something else. I mean, there's still enough of the old John in it, so the fans won't be disappointed, but I think it adds a whole new dimension to what he can do.
He lost a lot of weight for the role, didn't he? How much?
Well, I mean, 50 pounds. I mean, it was a tremendous kind of commitment for A, to take on the risk of doing something completely different, albeit a comedy, but also to get into shape for it, because one of the reasons he had to be in shape was that it was such a difficult film to make, that we shot a lot of the film at the top of the Rocky Mountains at 13,000 feet, and which is, I mean, you have to be in some kind of health to actually survive up there. To get up there in the first place, you have to be in health, let alone to work up there. But I mean, the major thing was that you have to accept him in the film as romantic. The audience has to go along with Blair Brown's character and fall in love with him. So we had to make him look as good as he can be made to look.
He's put some of the weight back on, hasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's done another film since he did Continental Divide, and so I think that film demanded more of what, the John Belushi we know and love. This was a different thing.
What were some of the difficulties for you as the director doing this picture? You mentioned the location, but what were some of the hardships of the locations?
Well, I mean, we had to deal with a lot of animals in the film, which was horrendous. We have mountain lions in the film, we have bears in the film, we have bald eagles in the film, which is in itself extremely difficult, because in most of these we had some trade animals, but we're dealing with wild animals who will not do as they're told by their very nature. But I think, quite honestly, and it's something we mentioned a bit before, the most difficult thing is to pitch the humour of it. Because John has to be funny, the film has to be funny. The film is not a serious film, it's a comedy. And it's to pitch it so that John delivers enough of the comedy that we know and love, and yet is a real character. A character, you have to believe that John is a Chicago newspaperman, a serious, important, respected journalist. But nonetheless, to make that character as entertaining in the way that only Belushi could, because I don't want to put John in a film and not deliver what made John the star that he is. So I think that was the most difficult thing. And Blair was extremely helpful with that, because she is from a different tradition. She's a very serious, very expert actress. And John, I think, learned a lot about how to approach her role from working with her. But I think for me that was the most difficult thing, was to make the film as funny as I could and yet to make it as believable as I could.
In this film, on location, did you have any mishaps, either with equipment or people or whatever?
Well, I suppose, I mean, just the main mishaps were with animals. I mean, with bears not wanting to work, with falling asleep when they were supposed to be being angry, with mountain lions who purred instead of growled and all this sort of thing, and we had to be kind of beefed up to be angry, and a big mountain elk that was so fat it could hardly move. I mean, these to me were the memories I shall take back of the difficulty of dealing with that.
What is it, Michael, about these two people that makes them drawn to one another? Did you have to resolve that in your own mind before you ever started?
Well, I think it's the situation. I mean, here are two people who are stuck with each other. I think they're two people who take what they do seriously. He's a serious newspaperman, she's a serious ornithologist, she's a serious professional woman scientist. So there's a great respect for each other for what they do. But I mean, the fun of the film is here are two people who meet, who on sight dislike each other. she resents the fact that he's there, and he resents the fact that she's not cooperating and giving him a story. And the fun of the film is watching these two unlikely people. I mean, he hardly looks like Robert Redford, even with the 50 pounds off. And the fun of the film is watching these two people form a relationship which seems impossible. So that was always in my mind, was to give the audience as much fun in seeing these two people fall in love as possible.
They seem, in talking with them, it seems to be perfect casting for Blair, because she really, I think, does prefer the mountains to the city of Chicago. Yeah. And of course, John obviously prefers Chicago to the mountains.
You know, I mean, casting her, it was difficult because you had to, again, just like you have to believe John, you have to believe that this woman is prepared to sit up on the top of a mountain for 3 or 4 years and watch birds. So you couldn't cast anybody who you knew would need 2 hours in makeup before they stepped out into the big outdoors. And temperamentally, you had to find someone who had a kind of self-sufficiency and great willpower to do what she did, and also someone who could suggest that she was a scientist, a very professional woman. And that was a tough thing to find in Hollywood, which doesn't necessarily breed actresses that have those sort of qualities.
You once directed Laurence Olivier, did you not?
Mm-hmm.
You're smiling.
Oh, no. I mean, it's always interesting because the variety of people that you do work with. I mean, it's always ceases to, I mean, you never learn anymore, I don't think, about actors except how different they all are and how gifted they all. I mean, working with John is very gifted. I mean, he's no less or more gifted than Laurence Olivier, although that may shock you. You know, I mean, it's just the more you work, the more you realise how different they all are and what different things they have to bring to their job and what different skills they have. And none is better or worse than the other. They all have these different talents, you know.
Because of his reputation, though, did you feel intimidated by Laurence Olivier?
Yeah, very much. It was awe-inspiring. But I mean, he is a wonderful man, and since he knew that if I was going to direct him, it would be no good if I was in awe of him, if I was just a small boy looking up at him saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, my lord, whatever. I mean, he realised that he would get the best out of me by making me feel easy and not making me feel intimidated, which is why he's a great man, you know, why he never used his power and the fact that he is awe-inspiring, you know, to any effect. I mean, he wanted the best out of me, and he could only get that by making me feel comfortable with him.
Michael, I've enjoyed having this chance to talk with you, and I hope that Continental Divide is a big hit for you.
Well, thanks very much.
Nice seeing you again.
And you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
No, you can look towards him.
Okay, and are you cutting it like about here?
Yes, I'm cutting.
Okay, all right.
Okay, now.
Okay. All right, do reactions. Let's see, my feet were this way.
You can turn a little bit more towards
Okay.
him, that's fine.
Yeah, but I don't want a profile of me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. No. It's not.
Maybe you could look on the page.
Okay, questions. All right. Was John Belushi already cast in this when you came into the picture, Michael? He lost a lot of weight for this role, didn't he? And he seems, are you trying to tell me something? Oh, okay, all right. As the director, what were some of the difficulties you had with this picture, especially the locations? You once directed Laurence Olivier, didn't you? Were you in awe of him? Okay.
Okay, stop.
All right.
Well, I liked that.